My name is Maya Harrison. I was 18 years old when I signed the papers that destroyed my future, but I didn't know that at the time. I only knew that my body was broken. They used to call me lucky before the accident. Not because good things happened to me, but because I always walked away from disasters with scratches instead of scars. Skateboard wipeouts, falling off rooftops chasing frisbees, car dents, near misses, always bruised, never broken, until Highway 9. A drunk driver in a lifted Ford F-150 ran a red light and crushed the passenger side of our Honda Civic. My best friend, Tommy Collins, died instantly. I survived. Crushed pelvis, 4 shattered ribs, titanium rods, 8 months learning how to walk again. 2 years later, the settlement came. $127,500. To most people, that's life-changing money. To my parents, it was an opportunity. "We'll manage it for you, sweetheart," my mother, Diane Harrison, said softly as she stroked my hair in the hospital. "You just turned 18. Finances are complicated. We'll protect it for your college and medical needs." My father, William Harrison, nodded solemnly. "It'll be in a special trust, strictly for your benefit." I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? They were my parents. My older sister, Madeline Harrison, had always been the sun our family orbited around. Northwestern graduate, homecoming queen, engaged to Connor Whitfield, a polished investment advisor with perfect teeth and a Tesla that hummed like money. While I was relearning how to climb stairs, Madeline was planning her fairy tale wedding. "Connor's already looking at houses in Millbrook Estates," Mom would gush during my physical therapy sessions. "The Caldwells live there." "That's great," I'd mutter through clenched teeth as my hip screamed under pressure. "When you get married, we'll help you too," she'd add absently, already imagining Madeline's nursery. Even before the accident, I had been invisible. Madeline was the pride. I was the problem. 2 years passed. I worked construction despite the constant ache in my rebuilt hip. Doctors warned I'd need another surgery within 5 years. I thought that's what the settlement was for. So when I asked about accessing it for community college tuition, my mother went pale. "We need to talk," she said. That was the moment everything cracked. They'd used $180,000 for Madeline's down payment in Millbrook Estates, $65,000 for her wedding, the one featured in Southern Living, $25,000 to pay off her student loans. $5,000 remained. 5. "How could you do this to me?" My voice shook in their pristine living room. "Madeline needed stability," Dad said calmly. "You're young. You can earn money." "With my dead best friend's settlement?" I whispered. "Don't be dramatic," Madeline snapped from the sofa, inspecting her manicured nails. "It's not like you were using it." "I was saving it for surgery." "Community college is practically free," she scoffed. "Connor and I needed a proper home." The screaming match was nuclear. "You signed those papers yourself," Mom shrieked. "It was legal." "Legal?" I slammed my fist on the oak table. "You told me it was for my medical bills." Dad pointed toward the door. "Get out." I laughed, hollow. "You mean the house you bought with my blood money?" I slept in my Silverado that night. Frost crept along the windshield. My hip throbbed. And for the first time in my life, I understood something clearly. I had never been their daughter. I had been their emergency fund. Uncle Jake found me the next morning at a Texaco station, engine running, heat blasting against the frost that glazed my windshield. "Maya, what the hell are you doing, sleeping in your truck?" I hadn't planned on crying, but the second I saw his face, worried, furious, protective, everything spilled out. The accident, the trust, the house in Millbrook Estates, the $5,000 that was supposedly left. Jake's jaw tightened the longer I talked. "Your father pulled the same stunt on me 30 years ago," he muttered. "Borrowed money for some can't-miss opportunity. Never paid it back." "They said it was legal," I whispered. "Legal doesn't mean right." He took me home to Aunt Rosa's apartment above their auto repair shop. It wasn't big. The carpet was thin. The kitchen cabinets didn't match. But Rosa made caldo de pollo and didn't ask me to explain my worth. That first night, I slept in a real bed, and I realized how starved I had been for something simple, being treated like I mattered. Working in the shop with Jake felt like stepping into oxygen after years underwater. Engines made sense. Bolts either tightened or they didn't. There was no pretending, no favoritism, no golden child. "You've got a feel for this," Jake said one afternoon as I rebuilt a transmission. "I always hoped someone in this family would want the business." I swallowed. "I do, and I meant it." But the part that burned wasn't the money. It was Tommy. Jake was elbow deep in a Mustang engine when he said it. "You know what really gets me? They used your best friend's death money to fund Madeline's luxury lifestyle." The words hit harder than anything else. I hadn't framed it that way. Tommy's parents deserved to know. I met Sandra and Robert Collins at Murphy's Diner, the same booth where Tommy and I used to demolish chocolate chip pancakes after football games. Sandra hugged me like she was afraid I might vanish. "We've wondered how you were," she said softly. I told them everything. Every dollar, every lie. Robert's jaw tightened. "That settlement was meant to secure your future, the one Tommy didn't get to have." "I feel like I failed him," I admitted. "Like I let it happen." Sandra squeezed my hand. "You were 18 and in pain. Your parents failed you both. They didn't scream. They didn't threaten lawsuits. They did something worse. They told the truth." Robert sat on the Pinehurst Country Club board. Sandra was president of the Riverside Businesswomen's Association. They simply shared their profound disappointment. "We harbored no anger toward Maya," Sandra would say calmly. "She was manipulated at her most vulnerable. But can you imagine stealing from your injured child to buy another child a mansion?" Decent people recoiled. My mother was quietly removed from the hospital's charity board, a position she'd held for 12 years. "It's that vindictive Rebecca Morrison," Mom complained over the phone to someone. All because I didn't support her children's wing proposal. But it wasn't just Mrs. Morrison. Word spread the way truth does in small towns. Not loudly, but thoroughly. Madeline called me 3 months later, voice sharp with rage. "What lies are you spreading? Mom's been dropped from 4 committees." "I haven't told anyone anything," I replied evenly. "She's the one bragging about how she helped you buy your house. It was a family decision. I wasn't included. You're being selfish. Connor and I needed that house. And I needed surgery." Silence. Then, venom. "You've always been jealous of me." I almost laughed. "Madeline, I don't think about you enough to be jealous." She hung up. Meanwhile, cracks were forming in her perfect world. Jake's friend Miguel worked at Connor's investment firm. Over beers at Flanagan's pub, he leaned closer. "Connor's making reckless trades," Miguel said quietly. "Lost huge client money." "That's his problem," I said flatly. "It gets worse. He's using new investor funds to cover old losses." I stared at him. "That's a Ponzi scheme." Miguel nodded. "Compliance is sniffing around. Someone's documenting everything." A slow, quiet shift settled inside me. Karma wasn't a lightning strike. It was erosion. One conversation at a time. One lost client at a time. And my parents, who built their identity on reputation, were beginning to feel the tremor. Dad's insurance clients started pulling policies. "How can I trust a man who steals from his own daughter?" one longtime client reportedly asked. I didn't start the avalanche. I just stopped protecting them from it. The first time I saw Connor Whitfield in handcuffs, it was on Channel 7 News. He didn't look polished anymore. No tailored suit, no confident smirk. Just pale skin and flashing cameras reflecting off the chrome trim of the 6-bedroom colonial in Millbrook Estates, the one partially paid for with my settlement. "Local investment advisor arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme," the headline read. The footage ran for 4 straight days. Miguel had been right. The SEC investigation revealed falsified returns, recycled client money, and forged statements. Classic Ponzi behavior. The kind of thing Connor used to dismiss at dinner parties as rookie fraud. Apparently, he wasn't as smart as he thought. Madeline called me sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "This is your fault," she gasped. "Ever since you started talking." "I didn't report him," I said evenly. "You jinxed us. We're going to lose the house." I'm pregnant, Maya. Pregnant. I closed my eyes. Maybe Mom and Dad can help. They don't have anything left. My money specifically? I asked quietly. How can you be so heartless? Heartless. The word echoed strangely. You stole my medical settlement and threw me out in winter, I replied. That's heartless. We're family. Funny. I wasn't family when I was sleeping in my truck. 4 months later, the foreclosure notice arrived. Connor was out on bail, but his assets were frozen pending trial. Madeline, 8 months pregnant, moved back into our parents' house, the same house they were now struggling to keep. Dad had lost nearly 60% of his client base. Insurance runs on trust, and trust had evaporated. I ran into Mom at Walmart one afternoon. She looked smaller somehow. The expensive highlights were gone. Box dye darkened her hair unevenly. Designer handbags replaced by clearance rack tote bags. You must be enjoying this, she said bitterly. No, I answered honestly. I wanted tuition money and surgery, that's all. We did what was best for the family. You did what was best for Madeline. You were young. You would have wasted it. On medical bills? Her lips parted, then closed. We thought you had poor judgment. What poor judgment? I asked. Getting hit by a drunk driver? She couldn't answer. She just pushed her card away and left. But the unraveling wasn't finished. When I applied for financial aid at community college, they required detailed trust documentation. That's when I noticed something strange. Monthly withdrawals, $8,000 here, $12,000 there, labeled administrative fees. The $5,000 they claimed was left? Gone. Spent on Mom's kitchen renovation, Dad's BMW lease, a European anniversary vacation. Every single dollar. They took everything, I told Uncle Jake that night, hands shaking over the paperwork. Even after they said there was nothing left. Jake exhaled slowly. That's not mismanagement. That's entitlement. Connor was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. Madeline gave birth during the foreclosure process. She named the baby Connor Jr. Then, in a move that felt almost surreal, she announced his middle name would be Tommy, after my best friend. Sandra Collins heard. How dare she, Sandra said quietly, after what they did with his death settlement. The Collins family cut all ties with mine permanently. I didn't blame them. Dad called me one night. You could help us, he said, desperation cracking through his usual authority. We're still family. Were we family when you stole from me? We didn't steal. You invested money that wasn't yours. Silence. You'll regret this one day, he warned, when you have children. I won't steal from them. They lost the house 2 months later. Moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment across town. Madeline, baby, Mom, Dad, all in one space. The golden life, reduced to storage boxes and late rent notices. And still, they insisted they had done nothing wrong. That's when I realized something chilling. They didn't see themselves as thieves. They saw themselves as entitled. But I wasn't finished uncovering the truth, because buried inside those trust documents was something far worse than selfishness. It was forgery. It crept in slowly, like a crack spreading across glass. I was sitting in the small office at the community college financial aid department, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, stacks of paperwork in front of me. I had requested full documentation of the trust account that was supposedly created for my benefit when I turned 18, the account I had signed for. The account, I believed, was legally sealed, except the withdrawals didn't match the trust conditions. Not even close. The original documents clearly stated funds could only be used for my medical care, education, or essential living expenses, and required my written consent after age 18. But several approval forms carried signatures that looked wrong. Not just rushed, wrong. My signature doesn't curve like that, I murmured. The new bank manager, Ms. Elena Rodriguez, who had replaced the longtime family friend, Charles Westbrook, adjusted her glasses and leaned closer. These authorization forms don't match the original specimen signature we have on file, she said carefully. And some withdrawals violate the trust's fiduciary stipulations entirely. My stomach dropped. Are you saying? I'm saying, she continued evenly, this appears to involve unauthorized access to a restricted trust, possibly forged signatures, possibly collusion with prior management. Collusion. My parents hadn't just used my money. They had bypassed legal barriers to take it. And someone at the bank had helped them. I drove back to Jake's shop in silence, not crying, not shaking, just cold. They hadn't made a selfish decision. They had committed fraud. I didn't file a lawsuit. I didn't confront them. I filed a complaint with the FDIC. The investigation unfolded quietly at first. Audits, subpoenas, internal reviews. Then it exploded. The bank was fined heavily for systemic trust mismanagement. It turned out Charles Westbrook had overlooked irregularities for years, not just for my parents, but for several family friends. His license was permanently revoked. The town devoured the story. My parents weren't just selfish anymore. They were criminally implicated, not charged. There wasn't enough for prosecution without extended litigation, but named in the internal audit findings as beneficiaries of improperly authorized withdrawals. In a town like ours, that was enough. The Pinehurst Country Club issued a lifetime ban. Dad's remaining insurance clients evaporated. Mom's book club dissolved overnight. At Walmart, people didn't whisper anymore. They stared. Dad tried calling again. "This has gone too far," he said, voice strained. "You reported the bank?" "I reported irregularities." "You've ruined us." "No," I replied calmly. "You ruined yourselves. You could have handled this privately. You handled my settlement privately." Silence. Then something softer. "You were supposed to understand. Parents make sacrifices for their children. You sacrificed the wrong child." He had no answer for that. Madeline stopped calling entirely after Connor's sentencing. 6 years federal prison for investment fraud. She stayed in the apartment with Mom and Dad for a while, then eventually moved in with Connor's parents after realizing there was nothing left to extract from ours. Baby Connor Jr., Tommy, grew up hearing two very different family stories. I never corrected them. Truth doesn't need defending. It waits. Jake eventually transferred partial ownership of the auto shop to me. "You earned it," he said simply. "My hip still aches when the weather shifts. I'll need surgery eventually. I'll pay for it myself. Not with blood money. Not with stolen grief. But with honest work." The strangest part of all this, I never wanted revenge. I wanted what was mine. I wanted the chance to heal without betrayal stitched into my recovery. The house in Millbrook Estates was sold at auction. Connor's Tesla was repossessed. My parents live quietly now. No country club. No charity galas. No illusion of moral superiority. Just consequences. Sometimes I drive past their apartment complex. Not to gloat, not to linger. Just to remind myself that I survived more than a car accident. I survived the realization that family can fail you, and that justice doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives in paperwork, in signatures that don't match, in truth that refuses to stay buried. My name is Maya Harrison. I was 18 when I signed those papers, but I'm the one who finally read them.